guys doing here? This is Archie.
Hi.
This is Clara.
Hi.
Now, get back to work. Go on, go and do some homeschooling. Right, serious topic today. Rightmove has announced, I'll share it on the screen here, that last month there was a fall of more than 1%. Okay, so 1.3% fall, which annualized makes about a 14% fall if it was annualized. That's a 1 month fall, almost £5,000 in the average asking price of a property listed on Rightmove. Okay. Now, there's a big difference between asking prices and sold prices. But the thing to remember is this: there's a very big 6 to 9 month time lag between what's happening in the property market and what figures come out. And back in February on this channel, I did a video about the 2022 housing market where I suggested that the conditions for price dropping were high. In other words, the chances of a price drop was high. And before I get into it, I want to by this. I am not a doom monger. I am not someone who's interested in talking the market down. There are a lot of people, especially in the estate agency industry, who don't like any negative commentary about the housing market because they think it's bad for their business. And it just isn't, because the real job of an estate agent is to help people move no matter what the circumstances are. So I've come at this from an objective viewpoint. What's going to happen to house prices? Well, I've got a list of all the things that are going to affect them negatively and a list of the things that are going to affect them positively. But the truth is, nobody really knows. So for the first 6 months of this year, all the house price commentary by the property industry was, oh, it's cooling slightly, but it's still going up. It's still looking good. There's still a shortage of houses. There's still plenty of buyers. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. Everyone keep going. But I think asking prices in 1 month is quite a big deal. Let's just recap a few of the things that have happened. So back in May this year, the RACS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, put out their housing market report, and it was entitled "Demand Dips Slightly, Although Pricing Trends Remain Firm at This Stage." But in the second paragraph, it said, at the aggregate level, the latest net balance for new buyer inquiries came in at minus 7%, down from plus 8% previously. In other words, a 15% downward move in new buyer inquiries. Okay, and that was in May. Then we have Propertymark doing their April to June report, where they reported amongst Propertymark members a reduction of 29% in viewings. That's almost a third, a drop of 1/3 of viewings. And viewings are the lifeblood of the property market and of property prices. Okay, so that was in June, 15% drop in buyer inquiries. June, 30% drop in viewings. And now we've got Rightmove saying for a £4,095 decline in the average asking price. Okay, is there nothing to worry about, or should everyone be panicking, or is it somewhere in the middle? The truth is, nobody knows, and I'm not going to say what I think is going to happen. What I'm going to do is present you with the facts that you can make up your own mind, but I am going to give you advice if you are someone who is thinking about selling or thinks that the forthcoming price increases and cost of living increases are going to force you into a potential position of having to sell, and you're thinking about selling, you're worried about selling. If prices do continue to drop and you need to sell, this video is advice for you. Okay, so I've looked for good news that suggests that property will continue climbing, and the only good news you can find is that, oh, the jobs market's very strong, unemployment is historically low. And that sounds like it should be a good reason for property prices to keep increasing, doesn't it? But actually, when you then start to think about the fact that there are huge numbers of people in full-time employment who cannot pay their bills, that situation hasn't existed before. Okay, so we are in a new circumstances. So yes, unemployment is low and the jobs market is good, but wage inflation is not keeping up with inflation. So overall, people are getting poorer, significantly poorer, and that's going to get worse as gas and electricity and fuel prices continue to increase. Okay, so the strongest job market, which is the thing that people keep saying is a reason why the property market is going to be fine. Well, if you look at it with an open mind, it doesn't necessarily mean that the property prices are going to. Okay. Secondly, people say, oh, well, there's a shortage of properties for sale. Well, I don't think that's going to be much longer. There's plenty of evidence, and I'll come on to that in a minute, that suggests that's not going to be the case for much longer. Because yes, if there's a shortage of property, then the small number of buyers that there are help keep the prices up. But things that we know for a fact are negative influences on the property market. Inflation is at a very long-term high and shows no sign of coming down. In fact, the Bank of England predicted it's going to increase to 13%, which it hasn't done. Interest rates are compared to the last 20 years and are predicted to get much higher, which means that mortgages are going to get more expensive, which means people paying mortgages who are having their income already squeezed by bills are going to see mortgage payments go up if they're not in a fixed rate mortgage. And anyone getting a new mortgage is going to affect them before. Okay, so inflation is going against us, interest rates are going against us. If you're a buyer, someone looking to be a first-time buyer, this may not be bad news for you, right? We'll come on to that in a minute. Gas and electricity prices have already jumped significantly and are in October and yet again into January to levels where the average or the new price cap is going to be £4,200 a year for the household. Okay. And as Keir Starmer put out today, he thinks that constitutes a national emergency we're facing. I don't disagree with him on that. We have the ongoing conflict with Russia and Ukraine and the risks of that spreading. Now, if that conflict diminishes or ends, that'll be great news for everybody. But there's not showing any signs of doing that, and I don't think it's going to do that. We've also got increasing tension between the USA and China, which is not good for the world markets either. And very few people in the UK property market talk about what's happening outside the UK. There are banks failing in China. Retail banks failing in China. It's being very heavily suppressed, but if you go and look for it, you will find it. There are banks who there was a money out because they're worried about it. The banks closed their doors. Huge numbers of protesters turned up, and there are reports and videos of tanks, the Chinese government putting tanks on the streets to quell the protests. And that is just the beginning of that problem spreading. China's second largest property developer, a company called Evergrande with an E on the end, was also the world's second largest property developer, just recently defaulted on its $300 billion debt. Okay. The world's second largest property developer cannot pay its debts. Right. That is, if that continues to unravel like it's going now, that will have an effect on world markets. So and then of course there's increasing uncertainty. So nothing on that list is good. On top of which, I speak to a lot of estate agents because in my job, estate agents every day. And I am getting private reports in the last week or two of a sudden spike, which in the middle of August is very unusual, by the way, a sudden spike in valuations, right? People inviting agents around to talk about the value of their property and to talk about putting it on the market, which suggests there's going to be a big spike of property coming to the market in September. All right. And asking prices have already begun to drop before that's happened. So increased supply will further contribute to falling prices. Everything on that list contributes to prices. And in my mind, the chances of a fairly brutal property market correction are at the highest they have been since the early 90s. Okay. And I think it's probably going to make the 2008 and 2001 dip fairly tame. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to happen because you never know what's going to happen. All kinds of things could be unexpected that could happen and it could be avoided. But at the moment, from the information available to us, the pros and cons, well, the cons list is much, much longer than the pros. The only pro was the strong jobs market. Well, real incomes are falling. Supply of stock, well, that's about to change. So there are literally no positives that I can see. Buyer demand, well, buyer registrations are one thing, but whether or not they're going to get mortgages and whether or not the mortgage valuations that they're going to need to get a transaction to go through are going to happen, that's only going to get harder. That's definitely not getting easier soon. So even buyer interest, which by the way is falling, is not going to save us, I don't think. Now, if you're listening to this and worrying about the fact you need to sell your house because you think, well, hang on, it's only August, we've got plenty of time to Christmas, then unfortunately there's more bad news, because according to Rightmove, the average time being taken between having a sale agreed on your house, in other words, finding a buyer and agreeing a price, and actually exchanging contracts, is 150 days or 5 months. Okay. Now, that means that unless your property is already in the market now, on average, you're not going to have it sold, exchanged before Christmas. I know that what I'm saying sounds like doom-mongery. My philosophy is prepare for the worst, best, okay? And I think it's foolish and naive not to be prepared for the worst. I am not saying there's definitely going to be a house price crash. I am saying I think the chances of it happening are that the highest they've been in my working life. So, okay, what do you do about it? That's what we're going to come on to now. Excuse me, I just pour myself a coffee. You're probably going to need one too. Listening to me drone and ramble on. By the way, if you're an estate agent watching this, and I know some of you do, I'm going to do a special video just for estate agents on what it might mean for you if you haven't been an estate agent long enough to remember the last house price downturns and what it means for your business. That video is going to be for you. And that'll be on the BestAgent YouTube channel and the BestAgent social media channels. I'm going to keep reiterating this. I am not talking the market down. I'm simply sharing facts with you, which increasingly suggest to you that if you need to sell, you've got to be prepared to sell in a falling market. And that hasn't been the case since 2008, 2009. So we're talking about 13, 14 years. And I suspect it could be sharper this time. Okay. First and foremost, I want to wrap up on my analysis of the market by saying there is nothing normal about this market or this economy. Nothing. Everything is different. We are post-pandemic. The supply chain world is changing. Economics are changing. Markets are changing. Working practices are changing. And frankly, people haven't had long to actually get used to the new normal and decide what it means for their life, for their job, where they're going to live, and that kind of stuff. So uncertainty levels have arguably never been higher. I'm now going to talk about what I would be doing if I was someone thinking of or needing to sell. Talk about people who need to sell in the coming months, okay? As opposed to people who might sell the right price, thinking about selling, but not really that committed. I'm only talking about advice for people who are committed to selling, committed to moving. You need to move for whatever reason is forcing you to need. This advice that's coming is for you guys. Right. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video about the fact that there is a big time delay between the market data that's reported in the press and the reality of what's happening in the market. And it's between 6 to 9 months, because roughly speaking, you've got a 3-month period when people are thinking about selling, but don't come to the market yet, because a lot of people aren't sure they do want to sell, they don't want to sell, they're not sure what agent to use, they're getting different advice. So there's a 90-day period of people knowing they need to come to the market, but putting it off. Then you've got what used to be an average of 3 months to find a buyer. Average means some people are getting it in 1 month, some people are taking 6 months, okay? Average, there's no such thing as average, but it was average. And then you had the average of 3 months to complete a deal. So once you got the offer agreed, getting it over the line with the conveyancing done and the exchange done within 3 months. Right, well, in this market, I think the 90-day period of people thinking about selling is actually longer. I think it's more like 6 months. I think there's a lot of people who've been thinking about selling for a long time, number one. Number two, although it was very quick to sell last year and the beginning of this year, the time taken between putting a house on the market and finding a buyer and agreeing a price is now lengthening, okay, according to the data that I've seen. And according to Rightmove's data, the conveyancing period, the sales progression period, is already 5 months and not getting better anytime soon. So that means, if I'm right, and you're thinking about selling, you're looking at anywhere between 9 and 12 months to get a sale. Now, for some of you, that might be a terrifying prospect, but well, I can't wait that long. I need to sell my house in 3 months. And if that's what you need to do, then you need to listen to me very, very carefully about what to do next. Okay? Because if you just go out and pick any old agent at random and pick 3 at random and get them around to do a valuation on your house, chances of you ending up stuck, unable to sell your house in this market are very high, like 80%. Okay? And if you need to sell, if you must sell, and if you want to sell, let's say get your exchange done before Christmas, which by the way is September, October, November, so 4 months. Okay? In other words, much faster than average. It is possible, but you'll need to be extremely careful about how you approach it. In the last, certainly the last 2 or 3 years, but in the last 5 to 10 years, selling property has been relatively easy for estate agents. The hardest job they've had has been winning instructions. Once they've got instructions, selling them has been relatively easy, especially in the last 2 years. Okay? And any agents who've only been agents for the last 10 years don't have experience of selling property in a downturn. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not the one to instruct. Okay? But listen carefully, because what happens, and I've lived through 3 of these, and I can clearly remember them. The first time actually was because I wasn't in the industry, but I was in the property market myself. And I was a buyer, which was great for me. So if property prices start to slide, what you will see is a lot of property coming onto the market and just sitting there. And what you want to make sure is that that's not one of your properties. Okay. And let's say only for a period of time as the market corrects itself, only, I don't know, random figure, only 1 in 5 properties is selling within a reasonable time frame. Okay. Which is, that is not an unreasonable estimate. You need to make sure you're in that 20% that's selling. So how do you do that without just selling at a massive undervalue? Well, this is where estate agents that are really worth their salt really earn their fees. Okay. Because an agent who can get your property sold in a short frame of time at a good price is worth their weight in gold. And the first mistake you must not make is looking for a cheap agent, because a cheap agent doesn't even understand the value of what they do. All right. And it is a huge false economy to choose a cheap agent. Secondly, if I was choosing an agent and said, look, I've got to sell within, I need a sale agreed within the next 30 days, and I need the deal completed within the 90 days after that, I would want that agent to respond and tell me precisely how he or she was going to achieve that. And I wouldn't accept just a vague strategy. I would want to know precisely how they were going to achieve that. And I want to be looking for that. I want to hear not 3 different agents give me their compelling reasons. And if any of them turn around to you and say, oh, well, we'll put it on Rightmove, we'll get millions of views and we'll get buyers, right there and then kick them out of the house. Okay. They don't know what they're doing. Okay. You will know when you find an agent that knows. Okay. Because they will not spin you some cliched rubbish about, oh, lots of exposure, finding lots of buyers. That's not going to help you in this downturn. Okay. You're going to need an agent that will have a very clear explanation of exactly what he's going to price your property at, a very clear explanation of how they're going to pre-market it before it goes in the open market. And bear in mind, the best agents will get you a sale without going on the open market. So it doesn't matter whether they're on Rightmove or not, right? This is another thing. If an agent gets you the price you want and the time you want, do you care whether they're on Rightmove or not? Yeah, it's a nice to have. It is not a must-have. Do not think that being on A, B, or C portal is a must-have when choosing an agent. Okay, it might be a decider if you've got 2 that you can't pick between because they're both equally good, then maybe. But it is not a deciding factor, because agents have got just as much to lose as you if you don't sell your house, okay? Because they won't get your fee. So if you find an agent that does know what they're doing, really knows what and has a very, you want someone that really inspires you with confidence, quiet, calm, confidence, and experience. They're not giving you scripted sales speeches. They're talking to you about it. And some of them might have been around long enough to be able to talk you through what happened last time around and exactly what they did last time to help sell houses in a downturn. Of course, an average or poor agent will just tell you to price it lower. Okay? They're not necessarily wrong, but how much lower matters to you enormously, because what matters to you is how much money you left within your pocket after the sale has completed. Okay? And the very best agent will maximize that amount for you, even in a free market. Now, if any of you ever bought and sold shares and stuff, you know, when you got a share that's falling, it's like trying to catch a falling knife, knowing what price to sell it at. It's a real art, and it will be very specific to your locality, your town, your village, your suburb, city. It will be very hyper local, okay? And nobody can give you general advice. You need to find someone that really knows that patch inside and out, upside down, back to front, okay? This is a professional that's going to handhold you through it. And I've heard some of the really good agents out there saying things like they actually can't wait for this downturn because it's going to wash out a lot of the crap agents that just aren't very good at their job and can sell houses in an easy market. So they are out there, okay? But if you find one that you trust, and if you don't trust them, don't go with them, right? But when you find one you trust, follow advice. If you've chosen to trust them, work with them, not against them. Let them do their job. Really important, okay? And last but not least, don't delay. Panic, don't rush, but don't delay. Start looking under every stone. And by the way, this is a promo for my website, BestAgent, which will actually, what we do is we help you leave no stone unturned in the search for the agents that you want, okay? So we never recommend an agent. We can't recommend an agent because there's no such thing as a brand being good everywhere. It's down to the individual wherever you live. So get out there now, start talking to agents now. There's no panic, there's no rush, but I would prioritize it if you need to get sold. And if you choose your agent wisely, you will get your property sold before Christmas. And if you don't, you will probably be sitting with your house on the market at Christmas with the agent recommending that you drop the price further and drop the price further and drop the price further. So don't make that mistake. Don't be one of the dummies that thinks that, oh, my house is worth what it's worth. Any agent that puts on Rightmove will find me a buyer, so I'll just look for the agent with his fee. That is the most foolish false economy you can make. And not just a false economy. If you need to move and you do that, you'll end up stuck and unable to move. And I hate to mention this phrase, but if prices fall far enough, there is the risk for some more recent buyers who need to sell falling into negative equity. And that is a place you do not want to be, okay? So that's the advice for sellers. Advice for buyers. Now, you might think I'm going to say, well, don't buy while the market's falling, wait till it gets to the bottom. That's not the advice I'm going to give you. If you are buying because you need a home and you have a budget that allows you, you know you can comfortably afford your mortgage payment, even taking into account future increases in energy prices and inflation, that kind of stuff. It's a buyer's market now, and you're going to have good choice, but you should go ahead and buy, because being in a home, if that's what you need, is more important than saving a few thousand quid on the price of your home, all right? So if you find a property that you fall in love with, buy it straight away. The properties that are priced fairly will sell, okay? So sure that if you are looking in the long term, you're going to be holding on to your property for a while, and actually you quite like the idea of the security of being in a home that you own with the future uncertainty coming along, I would get your ducks in a row, make sure you're really prepared, make sure you've got a mortgage lined up and you've thought it through and you really have thought through what you want. Because if you're a first-time buyer, often it can take a few months to go through what you think you need and then deciding what you actually need. Speed up the process of finding what you want. There's no hurry to buy, though. I would say that. If you're not in a hurry to buy and you've got the luxury of waiting, well, the longer you wait, the more there's going to be to choose from, and the more in demand you will buy, and the chance you'll have of getting yourself a really good deal on a new property. Now, quickly, landlords, what do you do in a falling market? Well, if you don't need to sell, don't sell. Keep your property rented, because the rental market is strong, and there are going to be more tenants looking to buy, and people who can't sell their house are going to start putting them on the market to rent as well. So if you're a landlord, you don't need to sell. I wouldn't sell. I really wouldn't. I would just keep your property rented out because the country needs rented properties really desperately. Okay. And if you're a tenant, well, again, I think it's going to get easier for you if you're a tenant soon. That's going to be good news for a lot of tenants. I think there'll be a slight increase in properties available because there's not much at the moment. There's no rush. If you're not in a hurry to be a tenant, I wouldn't be in a rush. But if you do want your home, you want to rent it soon, then don't delay. Get out there, get yourself in a home, because being in a home is fun than saving yourself a bit of money here or there, as long as you can afford it. Okay, guys, if you've got any questions at all, please let me know what the questions are, and I'll answer them in the comments afterwards. If you know anyone that's thinking of selling or needs to sell, please share this video with them. And if you've got questions for me that you want to ask privately, please send me a private message on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, or on Instagram. Just search Moving Home with Charlie and you'll find my accounts anywhere, and on YouTube as well, actually. Send me a comment on YouTube. Private messages only on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I am here to help you if you're worried about navigating what's coming ahead. Thank you for watching. I've talked for nearly half an hour straight. I hope that's valuable and useful. And please subscribe to my channels if you are thinking of moving. I'll be continuing to provide more updates on the market and more advice on moving house every week. All right, guys, look after yourselves. Stay well, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.